in your currency. Splurging millions, buying houses like Monopoly. Fucking 9 to 5, man, the money is a joke to me. Buying cryptocurrency, my money in the privacy.
Hey guys and girls, welcome to this week's episode of the No BS with Birchy podcast. I'm your host Nathan Birch, and this is the show unraveling the truth to the facade of the 21st century. We're now exiting the matrix and waking up to motherfucking reality. Thanks for tuning in this week, guys and girls. Lots of things happening out there in the world, and it's hard to keep it all coming to you because there's so many cool things happening in the world. And I guess, throughout my whole life, I've always been thinking, I wish I was born 10 years earlier. I wish I could, experience this when it happened or experience that when it happened. And I'm so excited to be alive right now, experiencing this shit going on, because you couldn't even make this up. I felt like for 3 to 4 years, I was telling everybody we're going into a global financial depression, the GFD. We're going into a massive depression. It would be of biblical proportions. And I sounded like a dickhead. People used to write in my YouTube video comments, "Oh, Nathan, lay off the bags of cocaine, keep off the drugs," all that sort of stuff. I never touch drugs. Imagine me on drugs. It'd be off my head. It'd be crazy. But, people would write this sort of stuff because what I was saying was sounding so whacked up. People couldn't even picture it in their own sort of life happening. And here we are in 2021, and, so many cool opportunities out there, great opportunities, amazing opportunities, and so many bad things happening, things people never expected. And I always said for like the 3 years, I kept putting out content to everybody saying, we're going into this depression. We're going to see massive deflation. We're going to see massive stimulus. We're going to see massive inflation. We're going to see hyperinflation. People are like, what's a hyperinflation? You're kidding yourself. You sound like someone that's broke, that's in a lot of trouble and wants to hope that this fantasy thing could happen. And I used to say to my circle of friends and my professional colleagues and that, I don't even know why I'm telling everybody about what's to come. I'm getting no fucking thanks for it, and I'm probably doing myself a disservice as a business because people are like, why is Nathan being so negative out there, right? All these things come in, and I was like, I hope one day that I'm going to get a payday out of this. I hope that all my research and all my efforts and all my energy, because I know I'm right, 100% fucking right with conviction at the time. And it was like nothing was looking right, but it was like my research has got me exactly where I can see this happening. And it wasn't until actually about September 2019 that I was like, fuck, we're in the depression and everyone's about to feel it. And then come the start of 2020, and we've got this how do you call it, disease that's out there that I don't put a name to, and now this is going to be the catalyst. We're going to blame some guy in China eating a fucking bat, and he's going to be our fall guy. No one talks about the guy eating a bat anymore because it was probably like some fucking old wives' tale made up shit, right? All that aside, this was the fall for a recession. We saw massive depression, and it just got papered over. Literally, we had a massive depression, and it lasted a week, and now we've got everything's back to normal. But it's not. All they've done is made this big Ponzi scheme, an even bigger Ponzi scheme. And this is what I saw. I'm so happy because I made all the right moves. I purchased assets that were in the right category. I purchased things. I planned. I structured myself from a cash flow perspective, capital perspective, and I made the right decisions. And that is what's really cool. And people were like, Nathan, why are you being so negative and all this sort of stuff years ago? And I said to them, I'd rather be a day early to crash than a minute too late, right? I'd rather be a year early than an hour too late, right? And that is something that, here we are. We have had a crash. We're in the middle of a crash. People feel so wealthy, but it's like musical chairs. When they turn that fucking music off and everyone sits there and looks at the chair, there's not going to be enough chairs for people to sit on, right? And that is the world we're living in today. And I'm so excited. This thing is not going to play out just over a day, a week, or a month. This is a decade-long depression that we're in. And people are thinking that they're wealthy and all this sort of stuff. But it doesn't matter how wealthy you are. It doesn't even matter if it's myself with all the assets that I've got in properties and stuff. Yes, on paper, I'm gone up a lot in value and all that sort of stuff. And but my purchasing power is less than what it was a year ago, right? And all of us have less purchasing power than what we did a year ago. So I understand how inflation works. I understand how the currency works. I understand how the financial system is placed. And I'm looking for the opportunities for when things get hit. And I'm looking at things where things blow up. I'm looking at things that, the risk and then the upside. And this is something that, in our wildest dreams we could never have imagined or pictured. And this is such a great sort of time, in my opinion, to be alive. So on that note, the first thing I want to talk about is, this thing is all about inflation, and I guess who is actually responsible for the inflation that we're seeing. And, who is responsible for it? Is it, and there's a lot of unknowns about this, right? I just got off the phone from a map session, very intelligent guy, awesome guy, just come on board as an investor, helping him build some properties and his portfolio. And he said to me, I've just got one question, Nathan, like interest rates are obviously going to go up, and they're definitely going to go up. And what will happen? Like, how can you protect me from that, as I build the properties? He goes, positive cash flow, is that going to be enough? And when I turned around, I was like, hang on a second, interest rates aren't going to go up. And he's like, what do you mean interest rates are going to go up? Because they're talking about it on the news. I'm like, well, on the news, I'd saying everything was fine beforehand, and we were in the middle of a massive depression. Like September 2019, there was a repurchasing agreement issue, and the banks started going insolvent. That has never been transpired, but in June this year, or July this year, we'll start to see the information from 2 years ago of which banks were actually insolvent and the caused part of the depression. And I said it was going to be certain banks out there, which have all been bailed out. And with my chat with him, I was like, what makes you think interest rates are going to go up? And he said, it's the news. And I was like, well, don't believe the news. Like, they never get it right, and they're all just propaganda ponzi schemes. So I said, let's look at the facts, right? We've got a recession that lasted 10 years, right? The recession we had to have back in 1992 with, whatever his name was, Paul Keating, the Prime Minister of Australia. He caused $98 billion worth of debt, and everybody hated him. And it took 11 years for the Howard government to clean up the mess, right? And everyone was like, oh, Howard's a great guy, and Keating, he's such a bad guy, and all this sort of stuff. But Keating never caused a problem, and Howard just manipulated a few things more and created a bit of a different Ponzi scheme and made everything look great, and, he did a great job, apparently. But who controls it? Like, it's not the prime ministers that control it, it's the central banks, the policymakers. So we had this guy caused $98 billion worth of damage to the country, and it all got cleared up. And then we've had the last 10 years, which have caused a bit of damage to the country with some debt. And then come early 2020, and over a period of a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, within 6 months of a conservative Liberal government, apparently, we have got ourselves into $1 trillion worth of debt, right? I don't understand. I don't think people can fathom the size of this. We took a fucking recession, right? And it took years of problems to cause a recession, and it took a decade for allegedly to clean it up. And then here we are in 6 months, we have a bigger hole in the ground, 10 times bigger than the last problem, right? And no one even questioned it, right? We've got $1 trillion worth of debt. If interest rates went up, the RBA rate is 10 basis points, so 10% or 1%, so 0.1%, right, is interest rate. So 1% is 10% of 1% is the interest rate at the moment. If interest rate just went to 1%, the government's debt would go up 10 times, right? The cost of paying that, right? So how can the interest rate go up, right? How's this going to happen? How did we get here? Who printed this $1 trillion worth of debt? Who do we owe it to? Who do we owe this debt to? Oh, it's owed to the other countries in the world. No, it's not. It's owed to the central banks, the ruling powers, the senior management, to all these prime ministers out there. And, who's responsible for it? It comes from policy, poor planning, and a Ponzi scheme of an economy that's built up on a web of lies, and it has been slowly dying for the last 50 years. On the 15th of August 2021, it will be the 50th birthday of the fiat Ponzi scheme, petrodollar, that we have at the moment. So our dollar's been in existence in its current format, how it's been played for 50 years in 15th of August this year. So when we say who's responsible for our inflation, who's responsible for everything going up, we're seeing stuff on the news, right? So here's a few headlines that may resonate with you. Oh, it's the so-called virus. Okay. It is China, right? No, you're in a war with China and you can't win it financially. And if you go to a hot war, they've got more human capital and they execute everybody. So you're just screwed. You've got to try and win this trade war some other way without turning it to a hot war. Otherwise, you will lose. That's the reality of that one. But, what other things are being? Oh, it's the chip manufacturers that aren't making chips anymore. And that's meaning that there's no cars out there, so the price has risen. Everything's got an excuse. Oh, it was the bushfires that made the fucking food prices go up. Well, there's no bushfires for the last 18 months. Can we lower the prices? No, right? Everything's gone up. Why has it gone up? Well, it's just a very, interesting that everything's getting the blame. But who is responsible for this? And I'll tell you exactly who's responsible for it. And that is the fact that there has literally been more money printed in the last 12 months of history than the previous 200 years worth of currency combined. So 200 years worth of currency was printed until 2019, and now we've got double that in 1 year, right? That is going to cause massive fucking problems. Who could be the winners from that? Anyone that owns an asset. Who will be the losers? Anyone that's got currency, like holding those dollars, because you're going to buy less with the same money. So when people sit there and go, oh, I'm the best investor around the world, I picked this share or I picked this property that I bought or whatever. No, you didn't do shit, right? You have invested into something. I was looking at trolleys, right? Trolleys. For those of you that don't know, this year I went out and bought 15 motels so far. I started the Birchy Hotel. I need to learn all this shit about an industry I never knew anything about. So it's a whole new world for me to learn, and I can share that with you guys over time. But I was looking at just trolleys before, and I went on and I saw a trolley I bought, and it got delivered like a month ago, and I was just checking for my accounts team, and I was going, okay, let's look at this trolley. And this trolley was like $220. And I went and looked, and it's now $240. It's gone up $20. That's like 10% in a month, right? And this shit just keeps rising. The glass that I drink my water from, how much were they beforehand? How much are they now? Have a little sip of water, guys. But everything has gone up in value. So why did it go up in value? Is the property any better? Is your cheeseburger any better? Is your food any better? Is the car quality any better? Is anything any better? No, you've just had to fork out more money. How do you afford to pay for it? Oh, well, let's get ourselves covered in more debt. We're in a debt-based fiat ponzi system. And this is a scam. The whole system is a fiat ponzi system scam. And there's a couple of things we're going to talk about which are going to stack on top of that shortly for my next topics of today's discussion. But we're in a position where everything is getting inflated away and the cost of everything is rising. So inflation is real. If we look at building costs, for example, in the housing market, people are thinking, is the house prices going to crash? Are we in a bubble? When will the prices come down, etc.? So, editor, slide this one in. Hey guys, just with the what I'm trying to say here is that a lot of people are questioning, like, is the property market going to go up, down, all that sort of stuff. The way I see it is that the level of inflation is so great, right? The cost of goods, the bricks, the labor to build the bricks, the cost of the kitchen, the cost of the plumbing, the cost of the electrical, the cost of the timber to go on the walls. Everything has been so inflated so greatly that the cost of rebuilding a property, there's one of two things will happen. Either the house prices will rise to meet the cost of the building materials. Let's just use, for example, that someone's got one of these houses for 300 square metre with no eaves, and they've got a 40 square metre backyard. If that's going to cost $1 million, but you can go around the corner and find an existing house that's going to cost $500,000, people will be like, well, why am I paying $1 million for this house when I go around the corner and buy one for $500,000? It might be a little bit older, but I might get a 200 square metre backyard that I can kick a ball around in. So people will go and buy those properties, and that will put a pent-up demand and push the pricing of that property up. So therefore, the older properties and the existing properties will rise in value to meet the price of a new build. That is one option of what could happen. The second thing that will happen is that people won't buy the new builds. There could be some sort of correction and prices will, plateau off or whatever people think will happen. But the underlying fact is that there's a pent-up demand. Either people can't afford to buy the new properties that are overinflated and the old ones will get pushed up, or they won't build the new ones and then the old ones will get pushed up anyway. So there's a massive pent-up demand here. And the cost of the value of building a house and the value of the house going up so greatly, just to build a house, like a block of land, seriously, a block of land in one of these new greenfield estates for $955,000 just for the land before you build a house, before you build anything on it. That's nuts. Then build an overinflated price where it'll cost too much to build the house on it because it's gone up, all the parts gone up in inflation. That's just going to drag the market up in a vortex. That is in itself why I think it's such a great opportunity and why I love inflation so much. I am not going out there building properties at the moment. I built houses 3-4 years ago when things were cheap. However, looking at the market at the moment, the thing that I'm trying to do the most is buy existing properties with infrastructure that you can't ever rebuild again. If you can buy a townhouse in a capital city for $150,000 or $200,000, you can't build a townhouse for $150,000 today. It'll cost you $250,000 minimum. If you're going to buy a house somewhere for $300,000, you can't build a house for $300,000 now. The cost of goods have gone up so greatly. So that is why I'm going out and buying infrastructure. The reason why I got into the motel game is because I was buying massive amounts of infrastructure cheaper than what it would ever cost to rebuild, lay the bricks, put the plumbing in, put the electrical in, and all that sort of stuff. That's what you need to be buying at the moment is infrastructure and assets. You can't build things like you could beforehand. The cost of building has gone up. Everything is getting rebalanced and getting sucked up in a vortex. And that is where the value will lay in the market moving forward, is buying infrastructure that is below replacement and below rebuild cost. You can't build a caravan for $40,000 anymore. You can't have a car for $19,990 anymore. Everything has risen in value. You can't build houses no more for the price that you used to because the cost of all the materials have gone up so greatly. So, guys, understand how it works. Understand how the commodity prices are having an impact on the houses. Have understanding of how financial markets and inflation is having an impact on the costs of everything rising around us. Where will it end? That is the exciting part, and that is why I'm so excited to be alive right now. So I've recently done a few videos on commodities rising, right? And one of the biggest things that I played on and I prepared for was the fact that we're going to see a massive commodities boom when we saw this money printing. So we've got money printing, we've got the asset prices rising, asset prices being commodities, we're going to see a mining boom, we're going to build infrastructure. But now I did a video the other week talking about lumber prices, which is timber. So the price of timber has gone up from $250 to $1,600, sorry. So it's gone up 6 times in the last 12 months, timber. Copper prices, so the taps, the plumbing, the electrical, everything in your house that you need to have from an electrical plumbing perspective has now gone up about 150% in the last 12 months. We've got the cost of iron ore, right? That's gone up double or triple, right? So everything has gone up at least double in the last year. And I was talking to someone that I know well that sells land, right? They sell land. I was having a chat the other night, and they said that the land price has gone insane, right? Like some of the land we bought for our investors a few years ago, I bought land for our investors, and they did very well out of it. They bought the land for this one area, right? I saw one of my investors that sold their land. It was 525 square meters of land. They bought it for $500,000, and that land they just sold 2 days ago for $955,000 for 500 square meter block of land in Greenfield site in Sydney. It's stupid to even build on the fucking thing, right? Sell it and make the profit. You don't need to, hold on and do the build because the build is going up to be too expensive. But land, to buy a house with no eaves at the moment, like one of those little houses with no fucking eaves on a 300 square block. Did you know in jail, right? I don't know anything about jail, but in jail, from what I understand, is that they get fucking 5 hours of sun or 3 hours of sun. If you're a good boy, you get an hour or 2 hours, whatever, of sun daylight per day. And you have a little cell of a meter or 2 meters. You can go run around in there like a little dog. Well, we're debt slaves, right? And people are buying a 300 square meter block of land. They're getting a 40 square meter backyard, and they get an hour a week to go and play around in their backyard and hopefully hug and play and kiss their kids, right? And that right that they get is like $1 million for a house and land package, right? That's fucking nuts, right? Because people are tied into this debt. Will it pop? No, right? Because we need to look back at the fundamentals of this market. It's not a property bubble that we're in now, right? This is hyperinflation that's starting to roll out. And I've said this in many videos in the past, and especially the big video, one of the best videos that I've done, I believe, that has had a lot of feedback on last year, titled Hyperinflation, and go and research it on YouTube or whatever. It was maybe a half-hour video with me with a whiteboard, but we're in hyperinflation. I said it would start within 3 years, not really before that 3 years, and it would last for the decade. We are entering into that phase right now. It's hyperinflation. So all the commodity prices have risen. Builders have got so many people wanting to build a house, right? But the builders are going broke because they can't buy the goods. They can't get the doors, windows, toilets, anything. So it's not even now the copper price, the timber price, whatever. Fucking toilets. They can't get toilets to put in the house. They can't get kitchen sinks to put in their house, right? Everything's going up. These builders can't make profit. So talking to my friend that's in land sales, they said that some emails have gone around internally. I don't know how true it is, come from a very, very trusted source. So I believe it 100%, that the build cost from the builders are going up by 50%. Right? 50%. So how does that affect the rest of the economy, right? So the house prices go up by 50%. If you're building a house for $300,000, it'll go up to $450,000. So all the commodities and all the parts that it takes to build the house, not including labor, because we haven't seen inflation in the labor market yet, which we will, and we're going to need more intervention from the government stimulus. They're going to print more money, more debt, cheaper debt to inflate this bubble even more, to have more stimulus packages. You think that you saw the end of JobKeeper and JobSeeker and all these sort of little bullshit things? This is just a start. There's a term for it. I talked about it 4 years ago when everyone said, Nathan, stop talking so much whacked up shit. It's called Universal Basic Income, a UBI. Understand what it is, do a bit of research about it. Universal Basic Income is something that is here to stay. We can try and remove it, but it's going to come back with a vengeance. And looking at it, when I said that we'd see the GFD, the global financial depression, I actually said that we would see these mini massive recessions, right? And that would happen. A normal recession would be like a 6, 7, 8, 10-year cycle where you see money flow out of the system and money get put in the system and money come out of the system, money go in the system. It might take 6, 7, 8, 10 years to do that. I said that we'd see these mini recessions that would take a year. So it would be like, let's turn off the tap because there's too much stimulus, too much inflation. Then we have a massive downfall. And then we go, oh shit, we have to turn the money printer up and print some more money and get that money going back in the system. And I thought this would take, a year to 2 years per cycle, and we'll just go turn the tap off, turn the tap on, turn the tap off, turn the tap on. And we would see, these spikes in recessions. So we're going through our first one right now. We're going to probably end into a bit of a contraction. People will feel a little bit tighter because we're removing all of that JobKeeper and all the stimulus packages and all that sort of stuff. But we are stuck now, and we need to print more of this currency, cheap, useless currency, to go around in that system. And that takes me to a really big scam, right? And some people may hate me after this. Some people might go, fuck Nathan, you're off your head. I'm going to unsubscribe. Some people might think I'm crazy because I might go against something here that a lot of people have now been bought into. And the third topic for the day is cryptocurrency, right? It's the elephant in the room. And by no means am I a negative person about it. By no means am I the biggest bull on it. I love crypto. I've been invested in the Bitcoin since it was $500. I got into crypto because I was having a chat with a mate at a pub once, and I was like, this thing sounds like a scam, and then I bought some, and then it went up, and I was like, what the fuck did I just buy? And I was like, this thing is really awesome, it's the best thing ever, but I think that it's being used to manipulate things. So that's where I want to go into with inflation, and how crypto goes into inflation as well. So if you notice and you overlay some of these charts, you see the stock market crash in the start of 2019, the stock market crashed. The Dow Jones crashed quite hard. It came down like 30% or something in a month or so. Then we saw the crypto market crash. I think it was 2018, sorry. Forget the year, but it was like January, February, I think 2018. It was when the crypto market crashed last cycle. And people were like, oh, the crypto market's so bad, etc. Bitcoin went from 20 grand down to 4 grand or so. But at the same time, the thing that I found weird at that time was that the Dow Jones had a big crash at that same time. So as they were taking out money from the system, they were doing a thing called quantitative tightening, where they were trying to remove the debt that they'd printed. We saw it all around the world. It was in different countries. In Australia, we saw APRA come out and make it harder to get debt. We saw the banks tightening and pushing up the interest rates a little bit. In the US, we started to see them remove their debt from the government balance sheet. So they were trying to burn the debt that they'd created. They were pushing up interest rates in the US. They couldn't do it here in Australia, but we still had the highest interest rates at the time. We weren't at a ZIRP, which is a zero interest rate policy. We were at we had a slight interest rate at 1.5%, which we were stuck at for a period of like 2 years, 3 years. But I found it interesting that as money was being sucked out of the system or going to quantitative tightening, we were seeing the price of crypto go down. We're seeing inconsistencies in the stock market. We're seeing the bond yield, so the thing called an inverted yield curve. So how it should see it is that the bond rates, which is where the banks base their interest rates from and where they're buying the bonds to determine interest rates. The 10-year rate should be much higher than the 3-month rate, and they should go up progressively. The longer it's in, the more that you should be getting paid. But there was a point where the 3 months was getting paid more than the 10-year, which was a negative interest rate. That was a negative yield curve, which was a big indicator. And that's when I said, look, we're really fucked. And that happened around October 2018. It took an extra year for it to really collapse in September 2019. And everyone, put a mask on and said it was that in the start of 2020. But have you ever noticed that when we started seeing money getting printed or currency getting created from these central banks, that we started to see things inflate? House prices went up, the share prices went up, the crypto prices went up. Like everyone thinks they're a crypto genius now because Bitcoin price went all the way up to 80 grand and they bought some Dogecoin at 0.1% and it went to nearly $1. Everyone's feeling wealthy. But now we're starting to see quantitative tightening and we're starting to see, these things crash and everyone's got a thing. And I called a mate yesterday because it's been 2 days since the crypto market crash, which, this has happened a lot of times. If you're new in crypto, don't get too scared of it, right? But I think that it's being used as a ballast, and I called it a ballast many times, and I said I'm very heavily invested in the crypto space. Here's a funny story about crypto, right? I mined so much crypto that I got raided by the drug squad from the police, right? I had the police come in and they raided a property of mine because they thought the energy was like 20 grand a month that I was using to mine cryptocurrency. And I got raided by the police, which was a funny story because it was like they came in and they called me and they came to my office and they're like, oh, we need to see you about one of your properties. I was like, yeah, I know about it. And they're like, what are all these computers got, right? It's pretty funny. So I'm very heavily, exposed to lots of things like that. And I love this market, so I'm not, saying and hating on it. However, I'm questioning, right? We've got people out there saying that cryptocurrencies have, gone up because of Elon Musk. They've gone down because of China, because of FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt. China's banned, that's what's caused it. We've got people that have got DeFi that have been liquidated. It could be a mixture of all these different things. But if you listen to 10 people that were experts about crypto, they'll be telling you about some bullshit chart. Oh, it's a Y curve, it's an M chart. Like, I don't even follow charting and all that. I'm not a technical guy on that, so please forgive me. If you are into analysts, don't shoot me for taking the piss out of it. But really, you've got 10 people that all tell you about it's a Elliott wave or it's this sort of wave or it's because of China, it's because of Elon Musk, it's because it's just a cycle, it's because of the halvening, it's because of this, because of that. It's funny because not all those people are correct. One of 100 could be correct, right? But who is it? No one knows. No one knows for certainty what caused that to happen, right? I have a theory, I have a thought, and I've overlaid it with data and backed it up. If you go and look at the data of what's happened in the crypto market and overlaid it with other sorts of data from other markets, no matter what it is, I actually believe that the crypto market could possibly be a new derivative market that everybody's playing into. Technically, gold and silver should have gone up like Bitcoin price has. But they haven't. They've been artificially suppressed. So instead of inflating a certain market that could have a big impact, they've inflated this new market, right? And this is the fun thing about crypto. If they let crypto go down, I was on the phone chatting with one of my mates when it actually went down. And I was like, if this market crashes, if crypto goes down so bad, people have put their money from their mortgage in there. Like I've seen these groups on Facebook where they're going, oh, the wife's going to divorce me now. She's like kicked me out. I've spent the mortgage in the offset and paid crypto. It's some messed up world out there. Like people have bet their house on this stuff. When I bought crypto, I put $500, $1,000, $2,000. I've done very well out of it. Yes, but it's been a slow burn and I've had a strategy behind it, just like I have with property. People have literally gone in and bet their house on it. If that occurs and the market doesn't recover and these people are in the shed, well, then that's going to cause a new level of depression or recession with less spending, because when the crypto market goes up, people are making money, which is just printing their own currency, really, and they're going out and buying themselves a Lambo, some furniture, a new property. You've got no idea how many people I know that are in crypto that have gone out and bought new shit because the crypto's gone up. If that market went in reverse, that would mean that there would be less people buying less things and cause deflation, which cannot happen in the existing world of our financial system with the money that we have coming from the central banks around the world. It can happen in the crypto space, but can't happen to that market. So we've got a merge of two markets here. And I actually think that we have a crypto market which has turned into a derivative and an off-balance sheet sort of market. So imagine if you had a company, let's call it Apple, just for example. Let's actually put a name to it. Let's say that we had a technology company that was making devices, TVs, fridges, washing machines, whatever. And you were paying $2 a day for someone to make them in some third world country to make these devices. If the stock listed company had done that trade and had those people working a sweatshop, it would be a big problem, right? So how would you get around that? Well, you would get someone or something to create a second entity, and then you consult and buy the parts from that company, right? So it's an off-balance sheet transaction, right? It's a ledger that's off the balance sheet that is transacting over there. So in essence, if you were making electronic parts and you wanted to get them at slave labor, you wouldn't put it on your balance sheet. You'd create a new balance sheet which has a mule to it, and then you would transact with that off-balance sheet transaction, right? So if you wanted to, blow that up, let's say you had a company on the stock market and you wanted to blow up a company to the side, you would have a dummy company, and then you'd blow that company up and the main company wouldn't be of an issue. So imagine if you were a central bank and you were trying to keep a Ponzi scheme alive or keep a currency alive that was dying, and you wanted to do it off balance sheet, you could find something else as a mule to do it to. And that is where I think that we've got inflation occurring in cryptocurrencies, which is great, right? Like, this is why I'm so excited about it. I'm not talking about it as being bad. I'm just saying, think of the possibility of it being a derivative, right? You've all seen The Big Short, the dog shit wrapped in cat shit wrapped in mouse shit wrapped in whatever, right? Is crypto being used for that as a ballast for the central banks, creating inflation over there, but not cooking the books from the fiat currency side of things, which is a very interesting concept. I haven't heard anyone talk about it, but it was the first thing that I thought of is the cryptocurrency market becoming the derivative and the off-ledger transaction to create inflation to keep up, and it's creating a whole new market of millionaires and billionaires and all that sort of stuff. So if we look back at the Industrial Revolution, they chopped up companies. You'd have a company, and then everything got caught up in the corporate bubble. Everyone's in a corporation, and now you're buying a share of that corporation, and then that share's getting inflated and hyperinflated. The crypto market is the same thing. But before you go out there, understand that, is it a derivative? Is it a Ponzi scheme? And I believe that it has turned from something that could have been solid into a Ponzi scheme. And don't get me wrong, because a Ponzi scheme is what's going to take it from 80 grand to $1 million. But understand it and have a mindset and go, shit, this thing could blow my fingers off as well. So a lot of people are selling their house, selling their car, quitting their job, whatever, based on some cryptocurrency, which you can't control because obviously there's a higher power and a higher influencer, which is pushing it up in value, bringing it down. If you wanted to destroy a lot of debt off a balance sheet, if the central bank was hypothetically to be able to go in, boost up the crypto market, create the inflation in crypto instead of in, the personal, like in just the fiat currency that they're using, if they inflated the crypto market and then they wanted to retract some of that debt and do quantitative tightening, they wouldn't have to tell anybody. They've now got a new financial instrument that they can create quantitative tightening in by contracting the crypto market instead of contracting the fiat currency or the stock market or anything like that. So now they've got a new source of tool that they can throw into their Ponzi scam. So just be mindful when we're seeing the crypto market go up and get inflated, and when we're seeing it getting deflated, is that happening organically? Is it because Elon Musk? Is it because of China FUD? Is it because of some other form of manipulation that's using crypto as a derivative? Think about it. Editor, slide this one in. Hey guys, just with the what I'm trying to say here is that a lot of people are questioning, like, is the property market going to go up, down, all that sort of stuff. The way I see it is that the level of inflation is so great, right? The cost of goods, the bricks, the labor to build the bricks, the cost of the kitchen, the cost of the plumbing, the cost of the electrical, the cost of the timber to go on the walls. Everything has been so inflated so greatly that the cost of rebuilding a property, there's one of two things will happen. Either the house prices will rise to meet the cost of the building materials. Let's just use, for example, that someone's got one of these houses for 300 square metre with no ease, and they've got a 40 square metre backyard. If that's going to cost $1 million, but you can go around the corner and find an existing house that's going to cost $500,000, people will be like, well, why am I paying $1 million for this house when I go around the corner and buy one for $500,000? It might be a little bit older, but I might get a 200 square metre backyard that I can kick a ball around in. So people will go and buy those properties, and that will put a pent-up demand and push the pricing of that property up. So therefore, the older properties and the existing properties will rise in value to meet the price of a new build. That is one option of what could happen. The second thing that will happen is that people won't buy the new builds. There could be some sort of correction and prices will, plateau off or whatever people think will happen. But the underlying fact is that there's a pent-up demand. Either people can't afford to buy the new properties that are overinflated and the old ones will get pushed up, or they won't build the new ones and then the old ones will get pushed up anyway. So there's a massive pent-up demand here. And the cost of the value of building a house and the value of the house going up so greatly, just to build a house, like a block of land, seriously, a block of land in one of these new greenfield estates for $955,000 just for the land before you build a house, before you build anything on it, that's nuts. Then build an overinflated price where it'll cost too much to build the house on it because it's gone up, all the parts have gone up in inflation. That's just going to drag the market up in a vortex. That is in itself why I think it's such a great opportunity and why I love inflation so much. I am not going out there building properties at the moment. I built houses 3-4 years ago when things were cheap. However, looking at the market at the moment, the thing that I'm trying to do the most is buy existing properties with infrastructure that you can't ever rebuild again. If you can buy a townhouse in a capital city for $150,000 or $200,000, you can't build a townhouse for $150,000 today. It'll cost you $250,000 minimum. If you're going to buy a house somewhere for $300,000, you can't build a house for $300,000 now. The cost of goods have gone up so greatly. So that is why I'm going out there buying infrastructure. The reason why I got into the motel game is because I was buying massive amounts of infrastructure cheaper than what it would ever cost to rebuild, lay the bricks, put the plumbing in, put the electrical in, and all that sort of stuff. That's what you need to be buying at the moment is infrastructure and assets. You can't build things like you could beforehand. The cost of building has gone up. Everything is getting rebalanced and getting sucked up in a vortex. And that is where the value will lay in the market moving forward, is buying infrastructure that is below replacement and below rebuild cost. You can't build a caravan for $40,000 anymore. You can't have a car for $19,990 anymore. Everything has risen in value. You can't build houses no more for the price that you used to because the cost of all the materials have gone up so greatly. So, guys, Understand how it works. Understand how the commodity prices are having an impact on the houses. Have understanding of how financial markets and inflation is having an impact on the costs of everything rising around us. Where will it end? That is the exciting part, and that is why I'm so excited to be alive right now. It's a fun one. And finally, for all the people that keep asking me what's happening out there in the stock market, I thought you said there was going to be a crash in the stock market, Nathan. We haven't seen the crash yet. I thought we would have seen a stock market crash. That would have been my thought. If you're going to look at the ASX, I haven't even looked at the ASX and charted it, but I'm just mindful of it. Go and have a look at where the ASX is at and see where the ASX was at previously in, say, January 2020 to May or June or whenever you're watching this, 2021. And has the ASX gone higher, or is it around about the same level? Because if it isn't, yes, you could have bought at the bottom and it has gone up. It could have gone up 100%. But if you were still holding your holdings from January 2020 and holding them in June 2021, is your holdings higher, lower, the same, or is it much higher, or just a little bit higher? The thing is that if it hasn't gone up too much, then you've lost your purchasing power because everything else has been inflated. We're in a world of massive inflation. We're heading into hyperinflation, and it is unstoppable. They have shown their hands, and now they're at a point where the central banks cannot keep manipulating this without either massive deflation or massive inflation. The question I ask you is, if we're going to go into a deflation and it's going to be massive, when was the last time we saw a deflation? And what did they do to get over that? They inflated it. So if we see deflation, that's going to be great because they're going to have to counteract it, which is going to cause massive, even higher levels of inflation. So be mindful, research the data, understand what moves are being played here, and I guess think about inflation a bit more, because everything from every corner of the globe, it doesn't matter if you're in Australia, it doesn't matter if you're in the US, if you're in Canada, England, fucking China, Zimbabwe, wherever, everything is rising in value at this point in time. And it's an exciting time to be alive. As I said at the start of this video, I always thought I wish I could be born, 10 years earlier, 20 years earlier to witness things. Nothing that I could have seen in history, throughout modern history or ancient history, would have been as fun as what we're seeing at the moment. There has been times like this, whether it's in, Weimar, Germany, whether it be in, Hungary in the 1940s. There's many times we've seen hyperinflation, and this is happening in our own backyard, and it's exciting. So I did see this article here, which is on Monaco64.net, which is a home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Monaco, which is named Mario, is one of my favourite people to watch on YouTube. I post a bit of his stuff in Birchfeed. If you're not on Birchfeed, go and check it out. I will post the link. But there's an article there which inspired this video, which is who is really responsible for inflation. And he goes on to write an article here about the thought of inflation and who actually is sort of, his is a different take on it, but it would be interesting for you to go and watch that. But understanding how the currencies work is very, very important. If you're going to make it through this cycle, you want to know how currency works. You want to know how money works, and you want to get a good understanding of it. You're not going to see it on your talk show radio. You're not going to see it on your TV that you're watching on the news, the bald guy that screams out shit on when the sun rises in the morning. You're not going to find out how to be a good financial person, because those people really are just shills pumping advertising for certain sort of agendas. So I'll leave it at that. If you do need help on educating yourself on it, you can join up to Birchfeed. It's free. Just go to birchfeed.com, subscribe. It'll show you how to register and subscribe. It's free. I share content daily. Sometimes I'll send heaps of stuff in a day. Sometimes I'll send nothing for 2 days. But I'll share with you guys, like I have done for the last 4 years, to get through the depression, cool information, other alternative views on how to, survive and prosper and take advantage of this market. Because this is really a once I'd say once in a lifetime. This is like multi-generational shit, right? Like you could spend the next 5 years or 10 years of your life planning a few things right and creating a dynasty for your family. So think about it. Are you planning for your Saturday night party? Are you planning for your next holiday? Or are you planning for your next generations? If you need help on doing so in any capacity, you can reach out to us 1300 367 925, email us at admin@B.Invested.com.au. And as always, remember you can listen to us on Apple, Google and Spotify. Make sure you subscribe, and we'll catch up soon. Keep being awesome and take advantage of this market. Bye for now, guys.
Like Bilal said, man, we're stuck in the matrix. This my advice, don't care if you take it. The dollar back to die, soon to be hyperinflated. This my 2 cents, don't care if you save it. Joint be decentralized and you will see you've been lied to the whole time, and it's the irony, cause they do the exact opposite. You become a slave to the system, and up your money, all they do is profit. There's no conspiracy theory, you better hear me. Crypto will set you free before the system does. I don't care if you do or you don't, but what I'm saying is the truth to the reason you choke. I never been a failure, excuse my behavior. Keep talking, haters doing me a favor. They all telling lies, I know what they been telling you. I'm the opposite of Donald Trump of Australia. It's amazing, there for the taking, my time is never wasted.